Nice.
It's also nice to see you because we met at the Primanima and we were flatmates. And I think since then we've been in touch on Instagram, but we haven't seen each other like in a while.
Yeah, I'm so happy that you invited me because I really enjoyed to stay with you in the flat, even though we didn't have much time to spend together because it
Yeah.
was a big rush. But
It was a
I'm very
short
happy to see
week.
you.
Yeah, it was really for me it was a beautiful experience to be at the festival, but at the same time to have a sort of flatmates life for a week. It was very nice.
Yeah, yeah, it was.
We talk about teaching, which I think it's also very interesting that many creative people end up teaching. So where shall we start? Do you want to tell me a little bit about, background?
Okay, well, I live in Romania, in Transylvania, to be more precise, and my main domain is children's book illustration, but I also do editorial illustrations. Occasionally, I animate, or for companies, or for little musical bands, or I make my own animated documentaries. Usually I start them at workshops. So, yeah. And I also teach children, and then now I started to teach teenagers and adults. But teaching is not the correct word because I don't teach people to draw. I teach them to enjoy drawing, actually. And yeah, these are my main stuff I do.
I wanted
Yeah.
to ask you if this teaching grew together with your freelance practice, or how did you start?
Yeah, so when I quit my job, I was a puppeteer. And after I quit my job, I moved to Cluj-Napoca, back where I did university. And I started to go to children's workshops to help another person, another teacher. And there I started to learn how to teach children, but it was not connected to drawing. It was connected to drama, like it's not acting, but it's connected to drama pedagogy. I don't know how to say this correctly. Storytelling and improvising. And there I learned a lot of techniques. Actually, 1 year ago, I started to teach children drawing and not drama. I started to put drawing stuff into the workshops.
And is it in local schools, or do you organize this somewhere?
Well, I organize them. I don't really go to schools. Sometimes I do, but I have a place. It's a I don't know how to say a social area, socializing area. And for adults, I organize the workshops in a nice cafe where the atmosphere is very welcoming, and I think it's very, very important how the place looks like, because if it gives you a sense of calmness, then you can get to the playful, childlike mindset. Yeah.
No, I think it's very interesting. I feel like when I started as a freelancer, I didn't consider teaching. It was always in the back of my head because I know that many artists do teach on the side. Not only visual artists, also musicians. It's very common for musicians to teach. But for me, it was mostly caused by kind of by the pandemic or by the crisis of the market, I think. Before the pandemic, I already did a couple of workshops here and there because they were asking me, can you do an introduction to animation or stop motion, but really 2 or 3. But I feel like not during the pandemic, I feel like our industry had a down later. So 2020 20 and 21 for me was good. 22 was a kind of dry spell. And that moment when I had so much free time in my hands, I started to think, what do I do with all this time? I could worry, I could work on personal projects that I do also very often, or I could work on personal projects, but kind of in the direction of teaching. Yeah, that's how I started with Skillshare.
Yeah, you teach on Skillshare. I think I imagine that it's very different than in person.
Yeah.
And I'm very curious about your experience with teaching online.
Yeah. Yes, it is very different. For me, it was useful to start like that, or at least to start experimenting with teaching through Skillshare, because I live abroad, so I live in Switzerland, and it is a little harder for me to teach locally because of the language, because of I'm a foreigner here, so I'm trying to be able to teach in Switzerland, and in order to do this, I'm doing a master and I'm learning better Swiss German, etc. So starting on Skillshare was good for me to start showing people also locally here that I want to teach, I can teach. And in fact, after I started to publish some classes on Skillshare, a couple of opportunities here in my city started to pop up, which is good. But it's true, you're right, it's very different for many reasons. Because it's recorded, first of all. It's not a real interaction with the students.
Yeah, but they can contact you if they need help or anything, right?
Yeah, they don't contact me like personally, they don't have my email, but they can, on the platform, they have space to publish work in progress, to ask questions, you know. So there is a little bit of communication, but it's still not a lot. And it's always delayed, you know. I make the video, I publish it, and then in the next years, people can follow the class, publish projects, etc.
I feel you have to have a lot of self-confidence to do this, because like teaching online, because if you publish something, it's there and you cannot I mean, you can. I think you can delete it, or if you are not okay with it. But it's not just one experience for a person. It's something that he or she can rewatch. Yeah, and
Yeah.
it's very terrifying for me, this concept that.
Yeah, I think there are pros and cons, and I agree with you. It's not like a real life lesson. And when you record a video, it must be more kind of, the video has to be perfect somehow, or at least better, because it's recorded. As you mentioned, people can rewatch it and some, etc. But that's what I said. It depends. There are pros and cons, because on the other hand, you spend the time once. I teach once. So I invest these hours, I record, I edit, but then those hours of teaching are going to be giving me income for years.
Yeah, I was just thinking about this passive income thing.
Yeah.
For example, when I organize a workshop, I put a lot of effort into, I don't know, figuring out the steps, the structure, the materials, the everything, everything. So the workshop, let's say, takes 3 hours, but before that, for a week, I have to prepare. And I was thinking about doing the same workshop, but with different people, different locations, different cities, because I think it's very important for us creators to sell the same thing over and over again, because that's how people can benefit from it. I mean, yeah, people who don't live here. Yeah, so it's very important to resell the same thing.
And it also makes sense to you in the sense that you want to optimize as much as possible your energy. So if you invested so much time to craft a workshop, you might as well try to profit from it as much as you can. So use it multiple times for sure, or maybe
Yeah.
even, I don't know, maybe even record an online class with the same content or
Yeah.
whatever.
I have to gain some courage to record.
But you know that it's just grows with practice. I feel, and also not just the courage or the confidence. It's just it's like a technical skill. Also, the video and the audio recording, the lighting, all this comes with the practice. Unfortunately or fortunately, I'm not sure. But I had the same issue, you know. When I started, I was like, okay, it's for me. It's always a challenge to push myself in an uncomfortable area. Yeah.
Yeah, I experienced this with personal workshops. Like, I don't have confidence before it, but when I start, I see that people are very interested. They enjoy doing it, and I over plan it. So I have a lot of exercises in my head or play games that I have to do with them. And I realize that people don't need that much that what I planned, only half of it. And that's how I gain calmness that, okay, it's enough of what I did.
Yeah.
And with time, like you jump in the cold, deep water and you start to swim. Like it's how you said,
Yeah.
during the process, you realize that, oh my God, I'm not that stupid. I'm not that
Yeah, and then you have to think. There are two thoughts that make me feel better about it when I am overwhelmed by those kind of worries. First is that you don't have to be a guru or a Zen monk, you know, to teach something. You just have to be a little more experienced than your students.
exactly.
And if
That
sorry, I just finished. And if they chose to have the class with you, it's already enough. It means already that they want to learn from you. So you should feel entitled to teach.
Yes, exactly. If they chose you for a reason to spend 3 hours or I don't know how much hours with you. And yeah, you have to give them a little bit of confidence in you, like they are in a very safe place. Like this person knows something, and you have to be a guide, like not a professor or
Yeah,
a
teacher.
guru, as you
Mm,
said, just someone who guides them
yeah,
through the process,
I
like a
agree.
little angel.
And
Yes.
actually, on this note, I wanted to say it's also often the case that you, as a teacher, you learn from them or from your students from, I don't know what age you're teaching, but both from children, from teenagers, from adults. It's also a learning curve for you as a teacher to understand how to interact with your students. Especially as a freelancer, I feel like we live in a sort of bubble where we are surrounded by our peers and we take so many things for granted. The moment you are confronted with a student, you realize that, yeah, there are a lot of things that you can share with them and that it's useful for them.
Yeah, and what is very already boring for you, let's say, I don't know, a drawing exercise. This is, oh my God, I'm over it. But for someone who never draws or occasionally, for them it might be very interesting.
Yeah. And what about the age? Like, what age are you teaching, or what are your experiences so far?
First of all, I wanted to say something about what you said, that you are a foreigner in that country. I think it's very important to have a good network in a city to organize workshops. At least, I don't know, if you know someone from a cafe owner or an organization or a social area, the owner of it, then it's a good starting point. But you have to make friends to collaborate
Oh, yeah.
with people.
You have to make
Yeah,
like active efforts to find.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, you are already at a good start if you know someone who might help you with a space or with, I don't know, few shares on social media or parents, for example. If you want to teach children, it's good to know few parents who say that, oh my God, this is this is so cool. I will tell my children's classmates or the other parents that you are
Yeah.
organizing this. So network is very important, I think, because then you don't have to be pushy. You just put your workshop out in the world that, hey, I'm doing this, and people start to connect with each
Yeah.
other. And yeah, I'm teaching 3 groups. The first one is 7 and 10-year-olds. This is the hardest thing for me, because not because they are small. I love to teach small children. It's hard because of the parents, because I teach them in the weekend, and the parents are overwhelmed and very tired, and actually they told me that this is one day when I don't have to get up early, so I'm kind of lazy to bring my children to your workshop. So I can totally understand them, but at the same time I feel this is a kind of an issue that they don't want to bring their children in the weekend. And the children are also very, very overwhelmed. They go to private sessions, math class, music class, sports. They do sports, and yeah, the parents decide that it's too much for them.
Yeah.
The bigger ones, the teenagers, 11 and 14-year-olds, come. They decide, not the parents. They decide that they want to learn new art techniques. They want to improve their creativity, their creative thinking. So I really like to work with teenagers. And I teach adults. I want to guide them to experiment at home too. They are not artists. They don't know how to draw. They've been told in childhood that they can't draw. They have a lot of bad experiences, and I want to give back, I don't know, some kind of hope that they can do art, and they can spend their free time creating something at home when they have, I don't know, half an hour. Instead of scrolling, they can just sketch or do something creative.
Yeah. I think it's very interesting that you have the experience of a wide range, different ages. And I find it also very interesting that you like teaching teenagers, because I had one experience with teenagers and it was brutal.
Really?
Yes, but to be fair, it could be just, a chance. And also there could also have been some kind of language barrier because they were speaking Swiss German to me. I had great experience with small kids, but I agree with you that if the students, whatever age, if they choose to come and they are motivated, then it's much better, much easier. If it's forced or organized by adults or something else, kind of workshop, it gets harder, of course, because you lack the motivation. And on Skillshare, I think they're all adults, the kind of audience there. And I think there is a difference between people who are already creatives, maybe they are freelancers or students, and other people that are not, but they want to pursue some kind of creative hobby. And I also appreciate that variety. Yeah.
It's nice. And yeah, what you said, you asked me earlier if I teach in schools. That's why I'm not teaching at school, because the teacher or the professor organizes the workshop. It's not the same. Yeah, people coming from different backgrounds, like creatives or just curious people. I think it's very interesting in person to put these people together, because they can inspire each other.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
That's
sometimes I cannot tell who is an illustrator and who is not, because and at the end, when I check their Facebook profile or I don't know, then I realize, oh my God, this is an illustrator too. But I didn't realize because they were together, and yeah.
That's something you miss in the online teaching, like the kind of the students influencing each other. So it's something that you don't have on the online teaching, which is a pity.
But do you get feedback, right, on your
Yeah. Yes,
and
there
what?
is there is a review section where students can not only write a review but also kind of suggest or say which kind of level they think it is, if it's for beginner or advanced. So they can give a feedback also on that.
I wanted to ask you, what was the most surprising thing, review or feedback you got from a student?
Let me think. I think in general I'm quite lucky because the reviews are really good. They really make me happy, to be honest. I share basically all of them on social media, and I think it's very good, especially in an online course, to get some feedback, because as you know, I'm recording in my room, talking to a camera, and I don't get any feedback. So having some kind of feedback is already great. I don't know what was the most interesting. I feel like in general, not just on Skillshare, people and students are very focused on the tool. They want to know which software and or which pen. And I always try to teach the skill so that you can apply the skill to every tool. Honestly, you could do it on paper if you want, or with any kind of software, because first of all, because I think it's fair. It's not like I am paid by Procreate or paid by Adobe, to advertise their products. First of all, but second, because I feel first comes the skill and then comes the tool, and tools keeps changing and evolving and updating, and it doesn't really matter. So I think this is the most interesting thing I noticed, that they are very obsessed with the software.
Sometimes I can understand this point of view because sometimes a software, for example, I drew first on Photoshop with the basic brushes, and when I discovered a brush set, I started to develop a new style because of the brush set, because it was so interesting. I started to experiment with it. It was very traditional like brush set. And sometimes the tools really matter when you want to experiment with stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I know what you mean, like in terms of texture or brushes, but when you're talking about a technique like morphing animation or loops, I feel it doesn't matter. But it's interesting, I think, to notice how maybe it's a modern thing, like how technology becomes the kind of the focus rather than the content, like the skill. But yeah, in general, I'm happy to have this discussion. It's also nice when a student publish a project, there is always this kind of conversation. What did you use? And there are all kind of different tools that people use. And this is the only way I think my students chat to each other, because everybody can comment other people's project. And this is something interesting, like, what software did you use and how did you do this and blah, blah, blah. Yeah, that's nice. But I wanted to ask you, I'm sorry, I'm jumping a little bit, but before you mentioned networking and marketing, right? How do you advertise your workshops? And is there a specific tool or something that you use, or technique or strategy to market your classes?
Well, I'm not very good at marketing my stuff. For example, the children's workshops, I only make events on Facebook, and I have a list of an email list of the parents, and I send an email to them, but nobody reads their email, nobody sees my events, so I am only relying on personal contacts, like I write them in a chat, and they ask me to write a reminder on the Facebook Messenger chat because they don't read the emails. So I can feel it's not, the children workshops are not going well in terms of so if there are 7 children, I'm very happy. They are not going well in this sense. The workshop for the adults is I think it's more popular. I have more attendance because the cafe makes the event, which has already a big
Network,
following,
yeah.
and people go there, and it's also a bar, a social area, so many people follow that bar cafe. And this is a very, very good thing that I started to collaborate with them. They share it on Facebook, on Instagram, and that's all. And sometimes I share my preparing on my Instagram profile, how I'm gathering the tools, how
That's what I
I'm
see, yes. And then
yes.
you also show afterwards maybe some results.
Yeah, I make a reel,
Yeah.
or I make some photos when I have time. Yeah, and I share with people.
Yeah, this I know it's another job. It's a second job to market.
Yeah, well, yeah, and I don't have time and energy to do it. I know I should, but I have to figure out something. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, what you do is already good, I think. I would say it's a lot of effort and it's very time consuming to write a single message to every single person, right?
Yeah.
But I know this because it happens also to me that people are like, oh, let me know when. And I'm like, sure, but if you go on my website, you find the information. If you read my newsletter, you get the information. So it doesn't make sense for us to remember to notify 20, 30 or more people when they know if they want the information, they should go to the source.
Yeah, that's why I am thinking about not doing the children's workshop anymore. For teenagers, it's okay. We have a group chat on WhatsApp. I write them when they come. But to keep in touch with the parents who don't follow me on Instagram because they don't have Instagram, the child is too small to have social media, so it's always the Facebook Messenger. It's the only option,
Could
and I
you
am really tired of it.
Could you maybe try to organize a Facebook group or like a group chat or a WhatsApp group where you put all these people together?
Well, maybe this is a good idea. I have to try it. Yeah,
Yeah,
thank you for the advice.
of course.
Yeah.
I was thinking a newsletter, but you said they don't read emails. So if you put them all in the same group, it's better. And also they see who else is participating, so maybe they encourage each other to do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Try that.
Thank you. Thank
Yeah,
you.
let me know how that goes because I know it's quite hard sometimes. You know that they could be interested, but it's hard to go and get them.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have a lot of other experience to share on this because for me, Skillshare is good because it already has its platform. And
Yeah.
I feel like so I can see the stats of my students, and I think like 90% or even more, they're not they're not connected through me. They are through the platform. They are sometimes not even in Europe. So I feel that's something that Skillshare is giving me a platform to reach people that I would otherwise not reach.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's hard if you have to market your own things. I never market workshops here, but other things, for example, I was organizing a local creative meeting, and this
Yes.
was also for free. It was not something people had to pay for. It was just having a drink with creative friends, okay? And even this, it was very hard to market, like to let people know, hey, we are doing this event, come.
Yeah, maybe you should collaborate with a place.
Yeah,
I think,
I did that. And when you mentioned your cafe, it was also something similar. I was going to a bar, and every last Thursday of the month there was the event. So they were also marketing it on their platform, and that
and
was
how
nice.
was it? It,
It was okay, but I think overall, now I don't organize this anymore. It was too much effort for nothing. As I said, it was not a job. It was not a source of income. It was just for a genuine interest in connecting with other creative people. And I'm very active because I'm still quite new in this city. So I'm very active in being involved and participate in events, etc. And I was trying to create this platform for other people, but if they are not interested,
Yes, and this is very discouraging. I know, and sometimes I have this feeling of anger. I'm sorry, but sometimes I have this anger that I'm putting a lot of effort into this. This is so useful. It's not life-changing, of course it's not, but it's very useful for kids, for example. And nobody gives a damn. Like, sometimes I get angry, and I think this frustration is quite understandable and normal. But then I start to focus on the problem solving aspect, like what I am doing wrong. Maybe what I have to offer is fine, but how I market it, how I plan it, like maybe the weekend is not a good thing for little children. So sometimes I have to rethink these things. And what you said about this meeting, I feel that it's totally different than a workshop. Like a meeting with creatives is something that, I might go. Yeah, this might be interesting. But if you hear about a workshop, which is at that time and it won't be again, then you have this urge to participate. And maybe if you say that, how many places are there? Like, sign in now.
Yes,
because the places are
urgency.
it's totally different than just a little creative catch up. Like,
it's true. And also I mean, totally fine. And I feel like it's okay to do trial and error. Not everything is supposed to work, and it's perfectly fine. And that's my mindset anyway. My approach to everything I do is I try. If it doesn't work, I move on. There are many seeds that I spread around. So what grows, what doesn't grow, doesn't matter. Just in that case of the creative event, I felt it makes sense. I am the foreigner person in this country or in this city. I want the network, but the locals, they don't feel the same need that I feel. Like they want to connect because they were born here or they grew up here.
And already have a connection.
Yeah, they don't need this.
Sometimes stuff that connects us is something we do together. I want to explain this. My experience is that my best friends are or from high school, when we had to attend school together, we had to do something together, or from workshops where we didn't just talk, we did something together, we created something together, we had a topic to talk about, we had a common thing. And I think that in networking, it's about doing something together with people, like organizing something with a creative. Let's say you contact another illustrator or animator from your city and say that let's organize together a workshop. Then a whole new world can open up, I think.
Yeah, maybe.
If you do something together, because then you can talk about it. And maybe he or she will invite someone to talk about your workshop.
Yeah.
Right.
It's true that like shared experiences in general, they create the bond, they strengthen the bond. That's totally true. But in general, yeah, it's really low in my priority list right now to do this. I'm already way too much involved, or I'm very involved in the local scene by now. So that's good. It's enough. And about teaching, do you want to share maybe some learning or like some anecdotes or something that happened during some of those workshops? Maybe something that your students surprised you with, or something like that?
Oh, well, I will share a negative thing first.
Go ahead.
So I did a workshop, but I didn't know that this workshop is not a closed one. Like, like with closed doors. The parents came there, left their child there, but they came back. It was a market. It was a Christmas market, and I had to do something with the kids while the parents are shopping in the market. The mom just took out the pencil from the kids' hands that you cannot draw like this. And I was so humiliated. I felt so bad. First of all, because of the child, that parents don't even realize that with these two words that you cannot draw can ruin a person's feeling about art. Like,
Self-confidence, yeah.
yes. And this parent plants the seed in the child's head that drawing is a task that you have to do correctly. It's not for your enjoyment. What?
And there is one way of doing it right.
Yes. And it's not for relaxation. It's to do something perfectly. The second thing that I felt that, why am I here? If the parent knows how to teach a child, then why am I here? Am I not the teacher here? Like, sometimes I don't like parents. That's the thing. So this was a story, a negative one. Positive stuff. I'm very happy when a parent shares on Facebook with me a drawing that the child did at home, because she was inspired at the workshop, and we drew fantasy maps. It was a class about fantasy maps, how to draw it, how to make it an antique feel, what kind of characters live there. Let's make up a story. This was the point. And the child made 10 maps at home after the workshop, and this was so good. With the adults, sometimes I teach association exercises that they can use in other fields, because association exercises can help you with creative thinking, like thinking outside the box and finding solutions that are not in front of our eyes, but maybe deep in our heads, but we cannot reach it. But with these exercises, we can. Some of the attendants told me that was so good, and I'm going to use it when I have to organize something or when I have to figure out a solution for something. So I'm very happy that they take things home.
Yeah, it's really a good feeling when they give you this kind of feedback. For what I've seen, because I see your stories and I see what you share on social media, I feel like your classes, your workshops are really very, very well organized, and the kind of examples or exercises or warm-ups that you present and you propose to the students are really great. Yes, and I also love how you, for example, often in social media, then I don't know if it's also for the workshops, you mix the literature of the archetypes and epic stories together with this kind of approach. I think it's not just I'm going to teach you a skill, but it's more how do we work with storytelling, not just let's move a pencil on the paper.
Yes, I think that skill is the second thing you can learn, but the first thing is a way of thinking. Like when you start drawing, you have to have a motivation to start drawing, and motivation comes from deep inside. You have to get a good topic. Like that's why I said that a teacher like me is not a teacher, it's a guide, because I give them topics and I make them interested in that topic first. For example, I know that you reacted to my story with the mushrooms. We painted mushrooms, and the goal was to show them how to use watercolor. Yeah. But first I wanted to make them interested in mushrooms. So I made a little game with mushroom pictures. They had to guess. Yeah, before we draw, we always play a nice game, or I do group works, so they can be invested in that topic. Yeah.
And after that, this also with adults.
Yes. Yeah. Now I invited a coach, a psychologist, a therapist, who will introduce a topic, which is a self-development thing. And I think if they get interested in that topic, they start to talk about that, then the creations will be much more personal, because it's nothing more frightening than a blank paper. But if you already start thinking, then you might get some ideas what to put there.
Yeah.
Yes, and well, I always bring, this is my favorite thing. Do you know the game Dixit?
Yes.
The board game? It has beautiful cards with beautiful illustrations, and I use those cards a lot. For example, we start with "How are you?" and you have to pick a card that matches your mood, and talk about that card. And this little game introduces them to association, or to this kind of thinking, like let's think in pictures, or
Yeah.
let's express ourselves with pictures.
I think it's always great to find a trick, a game also to break the ice in the beginning. Even if they're adults or kids, it doesn't matter. It's really good, yes. Have you ever had a workshop with animation, or it was mainly illustration so far?
I never had a animation workshop, but I really want to make a Strata cut workshop. Do you know that technique? It's when you make a clay shape with different kind of colors, and then you put a camera above the shape, and you start to slice it
Yeah.
and photograph it.
How is it
Uh,
called?
Strata cut, like
Okay.
it's, yeah, and or you can do it with red cabbage.
Yes.
Yes, and after every slice, you make a photograph, slice, photograph, and it will be a psychedelic like
Yeah.
this
Ah, that's very cool.
animation.
Yeah, that would be a
And
nice workshop.
yeah, because it doesn't require any animation skills, but it's fun.
And they
And
still learn about, frame rate. They still learn
yes,
about frame rate and, yeah, the duration of the animation process as well.
yes,
Yeah.
I just have to find a studio where can I
Yes.
have tools and
I wanted to ask you, how do you see your teaching going on? Like, do you want to make more, less, or go in a specific direction? What is your plan for the future?
I think I mentioned earlier that I don't want to teach small children anymore, and I want to put that energy into adults, like to organize more workshop for adults, because adults really need new hobbies. I feel this urge to do something, but they don't know what, and I think they are really interested in it. So less children's workshop, more adults workshops.
That sounds good, yeah.
And
For
what are
me,
your, yeah?
yeah, I'm thinking, I'm trying to publish Skillshare classes every once in a while. So I'm doing that. But at the same time, as I mentioned before, the online teaching opened some more doors for me, so that I finally am able to teach locally as well, which is more rewarding in many ways. And I don't know if you know, if I mentioned it to you, I'm doing a master right now.
A master,
A master's
like,
studies, yes, I'm studying.
uh-huh. Oh, I
Master.
didn't know. Wow.
Yeah, I started it part-time because, as I mentioned before, because without a master, I cannot teach here. And so,
Not even workshops outside of school?
yes, workshops I can organize myself, but if I want a position, like a sort of part-time job as a teacher, I need a master. And that's why I decided, after a lot of thinking, that it was good to invest time in a part-time master studies. So I'm doing that,
Wow.
which is good, I think, not only because after that I will be legally able to teach in schools here, but also because at the same time I have a graduation project. So I'm developing a new project, which is great. And also gives me the network that you mentioned before, so knowing more Swiss animators and animation related people. So looking ahead, I hope I will be able to teach locally more.
But I wanted to ask you, why do you want to teach at school? Like, I know that school systems are everywhere better than in Romania, but I was always afraid of teaching in schools because you will have a boss, you will have a lot, you will have to spend a lot of time on administrative
Yeah.
things.
Yeah, I can tell you why. I have a good answer. So first of all, I don't plan to be a full-time teacher. Here in Switzerland, at least, it's quite common to have part-time position. People have percentages, so maybe they are 80% freelancer and 20% employed, or you can fix your percentage however you want. And when I arrived here, I didn't realize that no one, or basically no one, is a freelancer full-time. And I am a freelancer full-time. It's been more than 7 years now. I've been completely full-time freelancer, full-time artist. And so far it's working. I'm also happy I managed to move to such a expensive country as Switzerland. But if I have to look ahead, it's not sustainable. It's not a good plan. There is no artist that I know that is doing only freelancing here.
Yeah, financially, it's very hard.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter where you live because it's very hard.
Yeah.
And it's sometimes it gives you a headache to not know that you don't know what the future will hold.
Yeah.
So it's
And I think actually this makes sense with the chat today. In the end, very often, the teaching is a great experience and I learn a lot from it in many ways. But very often teaching for artists is also like a good source of income, because together with your creative practice, your own films, you need something more stable that brings money in and that pays the bills. So very often that's teaching. So that's the short answer is to be, I would like to have a part-time teaching position like many other animators that I know here in Switzerland have, that can pay for my bills, basically. Most part of them, at least.
yeah, and I think you will learn also a lot from young people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, good. Hey, it was a very nice chat.
I hope that you will have some things that you can use in your video.
I think so. I think so. I think we had a very nice conversation, and I hope it's gonna be also useful for other artists to listen to, because I think this is a very common question. I received many questions about Skillshare.
I want to ask you something.
Yeah.
When you decide to make a video or to make a class there, do you have to submit it and the committee will judge if it can stay or it will go out, or how
Yes and
is
no.
it?
I tell you, like, you don't have to pitch the idea. There is a guidelines, like a sort of handbook for teachers that says what is allowed, what is not allowed. For example, I think teaching yoga is not allowed, or teaching math is not allowed. There are some rules. And there are some technical guidelines as well, like, video quality or audio quality. There is some kind of standard that you have to have. But other than that, you can make your class and publish it following these rules. Like, for example, another rule in Skillshare is that every class has to be project-based. So there has to be around a final project so that the student can publish something. And so if you follow all the rules, all the guidelines that the Skillshare is giving you, you can record your class, upload it, and then Skillshare has 1 week to kind of review it. And if there is anything, they can tell you, like, I don't know, it never happened to me, but they can tell you, for example, you did something that was not allowed. For example, you can promote yourself, like social media and so, only on the first video, in the last video, in the opening, in the closing. In the other videos, you're not supposed to say, hey, go check my Instagram. So maybe in this first week when you publish, Skillshare is going to tell you, hey, in the lesson number 5, you are telling students to go to your Instagram, go and cut this part out.
I'm very, very interested. You said that this platform already has its customers. Like,
Yeah.
I sell on Etsy, and this is the same thing there, that people go there and search for things. So I don't have to pay for Google to put my website on the front page, but it already has traffic. But this sounds very good, but at the same time, there is a huge competition in these platforms. And I wanted to ask that in Skillshare, how can you pop up from others? Or
Yeah, well, I think Skillshare is less crowded than Etsy, because to make a class, it takes a lot of time. So it's not like Etsy that every day probably thousands of products are posted. So first of all, that. Then your class as a new class badge for a long time, I think for a month or so, it's kind of considered new, so it's quite up in the research. And then, of course, it also depends what you're teaching about. This kind of teacher handbook gives you a list of topics and subjects that are very popular. So you can decide, for example, animation is one of those. So you can say, okay, animation is a in-demand topic, so I could develop an animation class. And also, there are some tips about how to make your title or your description SEO friendly, so that it's friendly for the research. And in general, if you follow those rules, you have good possibilities that it's gonna be visible. But as usual, I think it's, as everything, it's a little bit of a gamble. Like, you're never 100% sure. But I feel that if you do something original, it's very likely to perform.
And as like you said, that if you do these, that you put a little thought into the SEO friendly stuff, like how you phrase it, what kind of keywords you use. Sometimes I feel so angry at creators who are crying about. I don't want to be a hater or anything, but sometimes I feel that people don't use Google. They don't put an effort into searching, for example, how to use Instagram. Oh my God, I don't get any likes. Okay, me neither, but at least I am interacting with my already followers, my following base, or my closest followers, or I don't know. But some people don't interact at all, or don't use keywords, and they are few clicks away from the answer. Like, you have to use hashtags, or I don't know. So yeah, I'm kind of frustrated with people who cry but don't even read a blog post about how to use Instagram.
Often on Skillshare, I think the problem is that people have the expectation of the passive income, as you also mentioned before, and it's very good to use this quotation marks, because it's never passive, right? Like, never 100% passive. And people just make a class, put it there, and forget about it, which could work if maybe your class is exceptionally amazing. But in general, if you don't give feedback to the students, if you don't, interact, then of course it dies off. So it's good to keep these things in mind. It's never an easy recipe.
Yes, and passive income, it doesn't exist.
No, passive income, no. It requires always some effort to create it and to keep it afloat.
Yeah, sometimes I use this analogy with an apartment. Let's say you buy an apartment to rent it out. That's passive income, but you have to renovate that apartment after every 5 years. You have to go and pay the bills. You have to do so. It's never passive.
Yes, it's true. It's true. But yeah, for sure, it's still nice, I think, to to imagine that, for example, those online classes, I invested some months to make them, like especially the first ones, they took me a long time, and then it becomes faster and faster. But it's true for me, it's a good thought to imagine, okay, I put the effort once, like the big effort, and then the rest is a sort of
maintenance.
Maintenance, yeah, that's the word, the word, yes. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I have to go now, but
yes, it was very nice to chat with you. Thank you for this talk.
Thank you for inviting me. I was very happy.
Good.
Okay, thank you very much.
Of course. It was very nice. Have a nice evening.
Bye-bye.
Ciao.